Hello, today I'd like to show um, how to do something which has been available for quite a long time, but I find a lot of people are either not aware of this possibility at all or seem to be, you know, stopped by how complicated it sounds to do that. What I'm talking about is setting up your own trial environment for Business Central. So there are some steps which I will skip. So, for example, for consultants who work for Microsoft partners, there is a whole additional. Um, it's a complicated step. It's more than one step where you can use the CDX trial environments feature, where you can essentially have Microsoft set up a whole tenant for you. And tenant, for those who don't know, is basically think of it as a whole set of, or in this case, one computer, which is Active Directory or own domain, which can contain up to, I think, 10,000 users in this case. And in that tenant, then you can deploy or have Microsoft deploy various applications which you can use for testing purposes, one of which is Business Central. Um, and you can use that to also test various other features. You can have a test office package there. You can use advanced testing for CRM, various Power Platform related apps, and so on and so forth. So you could conceivably test most of the business related apps and features Microsoft has. Something you can't do there is you cannot use that for something like finance and operations yet. At least I haven't found a simple way to do it. But the focus today is I will assume you have your own domain. So I will assume I'm doing these steps from the point of view of a regular business entity. Any potential customer interested in being able to try out Business Center for themselves. You've probably all been in the situation where you just saw a really cool demo by a plucky Business Center consultant, and you kind of want to try it for yourself, especially if you had a recording of the demo and you want to see, okay, how does it work if you do it yourself, but maybe you change this or that, and there either wasn't enough time in the demo or you didn't feel like you wanted to interrupt them, or maybe you just don't trust them and you want to make sure, is it really as simple as they made it look? So this one is for you exactly. In addition to that, however, any person who is either a consultant or just interested in trying out Business Central, he can also use it just to do demos and play around. For developers, you can develop in those environments that you're going to set up right now, the one I'm showing you. And it's just a really cool way to play around and test essentially the full functionality. You get full access to the app source. You can download and install any apps which are certified and so on and so forth. There is one specific requirement. You can only do that with a business account, a business email account. So you can't use a regular Gmail account or Yahoo or Hotmail or whatever. It has to be an account linked to a business organization that you use to start this process. But then it doesn't matter which business organization. It doesn't have to be, you don't need to purchase anything. It's completely 100% free of charge. So how do you do that? Well, it's as simple as just Googling Business Central trial, and it should either show you as first option or one of the top options this link to the Microsoft Learn portal, which if you click will open this page for you, where you have a detailed step-by-step description how to do it. As you can see, it's not a lot of steps. So what you do then is you click the trial website, which will load up this page. It doesn't really matter the location right now. And then this is just a generic Dynamics 365 free trial. And then you can choose the specific product you're interested in. So for small and medium business, I will go to Business Central, and then you have try for free. I think, actually, let me go back once again. I think there is actually a way to click where you directly get there. Yeah. Eventually it takes you to this page. You can also directly navigate to this one, and then you get basically to the same option. So what you can do here is you can access an existing trial. So this is technically the sign-in feature, or you can say try for free. So let's see, if I click sign in, it's going to ask me for my username and password. And since I'm using a user who does not have a Business Central installation yet, um, as soon as I provide the password, it should, yeah, I want to stay signed in. It should then try and start provisioning a new environment for me. Yeah, so it takes you to this page, which is basically the same thing if you say try for free. And here, normally it would have asked you to sign in. It says, okay, are you the right user? In this case, I am. Otherwise, you can create a separate account. I'll say continue, and then it's asking you for country or region. Now, for those of you who are at least slightly familiar with Business Central, you might be thinking, oh, this is where I choose my localization, like which country specific translations you're going to be using. And no, that happens at a later stage. So what you're choosing here is essentially where would the servers be positioned, which is why, or at least as close to that as possible, which is why you don't get all the countries which you get as options if you're actually selecting a localization for Business Central. So in my case, I think I'm physically in Bulgaria right now. The closest one I usually choose is Germany. Just be aware that by choosing this one, it will also very often by default set up your regional settings. So it will essentially it's setting up some servers where these will be your original settings. And it's not the end of the world. You can change this in Business Central later. So I'll go ahead with Germany because that's kind of, I think, well, maybe Czech Republic is closer. Yeah, let's go with Czech Republic. I've never used this. Then you have a bunch of options here. It doesn't really matter. As you can see, you can bypass them and just say get started. And essentially what's going to happen after that is it's going to start provisioning a whole Business Central environment for you. So it's going to set up a SQL server, an application server, and it's going to setting up there. You can, if you want to, create a bunch of additional users. You would need to select users who already exist. So these have to be existing emails in your domain. In my case, as you can see, this is a trial CDX created domain, a tenant rather. But yeah, I'll just keep this and go to Business Central and then get started. And then it will take me to a page which will start provisioning the environment. It takes a while. Oh, actually, that's a new one. I haven't taken this survey, so let's see what they ask you for. Okay, which best represents your area of work? Sales and marketing, purchase and procurement. Oh, I wonder if this will set up my role center. Interesting. That's new. I haven't seen that before. Previously, you'd just be taken directly to the waiting page, which I guess would be what happens if you skip the whole thing. I usually say I'm a manager, but let's say I want to be purchase and procurement. That's my favorite one. And what's the difference here? Okay, let's say I am all of these things. Oh, I could have clicked why the question. I really hope this sets up a different role center for me. This process usually takes a few minutes. That's actually impressively fast. It used to take anywhere up to 5 minutes. In this case, it's actually quite fast. So what it does is it set up for you this Chronos, and depending on the region, it will get the closest localization I get. So in this case, I have something called My Company and a Chronos Netherlands. But let's go in the admin center before we play with Business Central and see what actually happens. So what the trial actually does is it sets up a production environment for you. It calls it production, and it will choose a country region localization for you. So I have no idea why I chose Netherlands, considering I chose Czech Republic, and there is the option to set up Czech Republic. What you can do and what I very often do is I delete this one and then I create a different production one for myself with the localization I need. Because this process tends to take a little bit longer when you do it from here than it did before. I have no idea why. I'll keep the production one and set up a second environment. So let's say test. And this is basically how you can create. So what you have is up to 4 databases or environments as they call them. And its environment is kind of more archaic because there is a database and a service. So technically what you see here is the service instance. So that will be application server that's running the client request and so on and so forth without getting too detailed. And then there's a SQL server behind that. So you can create up to 4 of those. You can have 1 production environment and up to 3 sandboxes. And the really cool thing is all of this is completely free. So if you want to create a new one, you just click new when you're here in environments. And just if you don't know how I got here, I just clicked on the settings, admin center. Then you give it a name. It has to be, you cannot use a space and special characters. So you can just use regular text and then use an underscore and dash to connect more than one word. So as I said, 1 production and up to 3 sandboxes, and then you choose the country. So this is the actual localization selection. So I don't know why Czech Republic was not available here, because you clearly have it as a localization here. But yeah, this is the exact same options you would see if you purchase a license for Business Central and you have the admin privileges to create those environments. So there is no difference between this and a paid license. The only difference is that this one is completely free for a limited amount of time. I believe, let me do a very quick check. I believe this one would be here. And in case you're wondering what I'm actually looking at, this is my Dynamics 365 admin center. So this is where part of my tenant that was created. So for you, that would be, if you didn't have this, Microsoft would actually create one of these for you. So if you just have a regular Gmail account, they would still create an admin center for you. And you can actually access it by clicking here and selecting admin. So this user, that's assuming you didn't have that before. Of course, if your user already has some kind of Office 365 product, or you use Azure or anything like that, then depending on your user permissions, you might not actually be able to see this admin center here. And you might be able to set up a new trial environment without actually being able to access the admin center. So the ability to come here depends on some permissions which need to be assigned to your user in your here, essentially, in the Dynamics 365 admin center. I'll show you which permissions in a second. But essentially what it is it gives you this license. So if you already had a 365 tenant, it will just add this license to your tenant. As you can see, it's assigned license 1 out of 10,000, so it's up to 10,000 licenses. It's active, and I think there used to be an expiration date. For this one, there is no expiration, actually. That's cool. So yeah, it will be there for as long as you want. There is an actual limit to how long you can use it, and obviously you can't really use it for production. So there are some limitations. I believe normally it's about 1 month. We'll have to actually read through the article to see the details of how long it lasts. Yeah, it's usually a 30-day trial, yeah. Which you can then continue using after the 30 days, but without posting anything. So you can just view, and you can only use the trial, the demo companies. I'll explain the concept of the demo companies in a second. So while you can create a production environment and a few sandboxes, you can't really use this for really real productive work, and there's a lot of pretty big limitations. So yeah, if you're thinking you get Business Center for free, or don't, they've thought of that. But yeah, it's a great way to try and test it. So let's choose a country. I usually like to play with the GB one because it has a lot more demo data. So just a hint, if you want to test without having to set up a lot of things by yourself, you want to just test the interface. Then if you're just testing the trade functionalities, things like sales purchases, some inventory management, basic accounting, maybe some project management, then any of these localization is fine. If, however, you want to test some advanced functionalities like manufacturing, you have the basic version of manufacturing, the assembly management in any of these. But if you want to use the advanced manufacturing or service management or advanced warehouse management, then you can still use any of these regions. However, you would only get a pre-populated demo set with data and setups if you're using one of the, what I like to call the big ones. So whether it's Germany, or United States or Great Britain or one of these. I think France as well, and there's a couple more. GB is a good bet because it's kind of it's very close and familiar to pretty much everyone in Europe and most of Asia. I would say United States is fine, but they have a slightly different way of handling VAT. So if you're not very familiar, there might be a few things which are strange, but honestly, it doesn't matter too much. So don't overthink it. You can easily use US or GB or D if you prefer German language or French. It doesn't really matter too much from a functional perspective. It does impact the demo language though. So if you want English, then definitely stick to a country where Microsoft provides the localization and it's in English. So that's why I usually stick with GB. If you do want German demo data, then DE is the way to go. And I think same for Denmark and so on. So they would translate the demo data itself as well. So you have to be aware of that. And then usually you don't have to choose the version, but sometimes there will be a preview. So when you're creating a new environment, you can select that. So if you want to create a new environment which has a specific country localization, a specific translation, then you choose it from here and basically you just click create. So again, you can create a production and up to 3 sandboxes this way. And you'll see this is in status preparing. You can just keep hitting refresh. Usually takes less than 10 minutes and then this will eventually be ready. So while this is happening, let me go back to my production environment and show you a couple of things. So what I was just talking about is when you are working here, you play with these companies, right? So I have the Kronos, NL, and then my company. My company is completely empty. So if I go there, you see there's zeros everywhere. There's no master data. There's nothing. And this is a way, this is a company where you can actually try and create your own master data, do everything exactly for your company without having to mess up with the standard demos. I need to actually take you through some explanations, and then it will start setting up this company. So you can absolutely use that if you want, but just be aware that this is pretty much completely empty. So if you open the customers list, there will be no customers. I do believe there will be a chart of accounts. Yeah. So there is some kind of a standard chart of accounts, which, as you can see by the language, is already in Dutch. So depending on which regional setting you selected here, then the language of the demo, as I said, will be translated. However, I may want to create a new demo. So if we go to the Kronos NL, for example, you can see that there are demo transactions. So there's some values here. There'll be some posted orders, some ongoing orders, quotes, items, and so on. So all of this is pre-populated. And if you go and you can test inventory setup, general ledger setup, all of these are pre-populated with some default settings, and which you can of course change if you want to. However, if we go to something like manufacturing setup, here you will see that there are some setups here, but I don't actually see too much, right? So I see some planned orders, and those of you who are familiar with manufacturing know that there should be more fields here. If I open the items, as you can see, there are some nice pictures in the start under demo data, so it's quite kind of cool to play with. If I go to the items list, you may recognize that there are some missing sections. So for example, if I go to replenishment, you see that there's usually more here. So you do have production, but I don't see the BOM. I don't see routing, nothing like that. If you go to warehouse tab, there's some things here, but not 100%. So if I search for service items, for example, again, nothing appears here. And the reason for that is that by default, the demo company that's created for you is set up in something called basic mode. So if you go to the company information, scroll all the way down, you have something called the user experience. Essential, not basic, sorry. You have this experience and it's set to essential. So you need to come here and say, I want a premium experience. And then the system will reload the screen and then you can have access to all the advanced features. So if now I go to an item card, for example, that's kind of one of the more obvious ways to notice changes. And we scroll down to the replenishment tab. Now you have all of the missing fields which were gone. If we go to warehouse, you have show more, and there's a few more that were missing before. So the company information, this essential setup has to be changed in order to see more. And then if we go to manufacturing setup, you'll see that, okay, now I actually have a lot more settings here. And this is cool because Dutch, the Netherlands demo, is one of those where you have a pre-populated work center, so a pre-populated manufacturing demo, as I mentioned. I think the service management is not really filled in. Let me just check. So if you go to service items, I think that will be empty. Yeah, so they didn't actually set up the service management. If you go to service setup, come on, there you go, service management setup, you see there's actually nothing here. It's not initialized. There's no numbering, there's no nothing. So the service management will always not be set up, and if you want to play with it, you do need to do it yourself, or ask a partner to do it. But if you take one of the countries where Microsoft, most of the countries where Microsoft is provisioning the localization, then you would have the manufacturing demo. Now, how do you know which are these countries? It would be an obvious question. So if you go to the extension marketplace, actually I wanted the marketplace, but anyway, you can get here from there from here. So in the extension marketplace, this manufacturing demo is actually a separate app that has to be installed. So actually, let me go a step back. If we see this as a list, then we have something called Contoso Coffee Demo Environment Dataset, and there's a specific dataset for Netherlands. So this is something Microsoft added way more than a year, maybe close to 2 years ago now. I don't remember, a while ago. And this is basically these two apps which are installed are what enable this manufacturing functionality to be preset. Now, in theory, and let's see if they actually updated this, you were supposed to be able to install any regional if you want, and then come over here and search for the Contoso Coffee. Come on, Contoso. There you go. So you have Contoso Coffee demo set. So you have it for US, Great Britain. I would assume that's Norway, but I'm not sure. Belgium, Spain, and so on. So you have a bunch of countries, but you clearly do not have all the countries from the localization list, right? So when I'm creating a new environment, I have a lot more options. So for example, I'm in Bulgaria. So there is no demo here for Bulgaria or Romania or Albania or Zimbabwe or any of these countries, which otherwise you can clearly select from this list. So what essentially this means is that if you use one of the other localizations, you kind of don't have a way to get access to this demo data. So that's why I'm mentioning it. If you really want to test manufacturing and you really do not want to set it up yourself, then just choose one of the regions that are here from this list you see on your screen. And if you forget the list again, just go to the app source, search for Business Central and filter by Business Central, and then search for the Contoso. And the Contoso Coffee demo dataset is what you're interested in. And what this dataset installs is essentially the capability when you are creating a new company, and I click new with the wizard, come on, then at this step, it of course gives some kind of a test. Then you have this very important option. So you can have create a new with no data company. And this will be really completely empty. And I would not recommend this unless you're actually creating a production one. Then you have the standard option, which is evaluation with sample data. And actually there used to be one which is evaluation no data. So you only get setups with no master data, which is kind of what the my company is. So I guess you can just copy that. Evaluation sample data is what any region gets. So you get all the sales purchase, inventory management, accounting, all the basic setups are there. There's demo data, you can play with it, but it does not have anything manufacturing related. The production setup data only is where you get actually, yeah, this is what I was thinking of. Production. So it's all the setups with no master data. Now there is an advanced. You have installed the Chronos demo on the app. So if you do this, and then there is some additional setups you can do later, and then you have language pack. Yeah, it filters and selects whatever language pack it wants. And this will start creating a company using all the standard data. So you create a company with the evaluation data, which is the basic setup, and then you have a setup which is for the Contoso copy, which you can run, which will then populate and have that additional data. So I won't go through the details how you do that. I'll just show you where you can run the setup later. And I think we can interrupt this one because I don't really need it right now. Come on. Actually, let me show you what happens when you set up a new environment. I would have thought this would be ready by now. Okay, I guess it takes a little bit longer sometimes. So yeah, I don't really need this. So you have Contoso Coffee demo data, and you have warehouse demo data. So these are some administration pages. So basically go over here and you click create demo data. In this case, this was already done. So it does pre-populate a bunch of things for you. You have Contoso Coffee warehouse data. So if you run a new company, right, you create this new company, and it has just the, for this one, for example, you had only the evaluation data, right? So you choose this option to have all the standard demo data in it, and then you can add the Contoso Coffee demo data on top. So this will essentially add even more demo data, and it will set up on manufacturing in the warehouse for you, and then you just run these Contoso Coffee setups. If you forget how to do this, you can actually search Business Central Contoso Coffee, and you have a whole learning a page which explains what you can do with this, and you have the introduction, and yeah, you can run with exactly how to set up these and what you want to do. So there's a detailed training available if you need it. So yeah, that's just a little bit information background on what region to choose and what to take into consideration when you're creating a new environment for yourself. But other than that, you saw it just took a few minutes. We got our production environment. You can have a few sandboxes on top of that. And I have ready Business Central available to play with. That's really literally all it takes. What I usually do is I bookmark this one so I don't forget where to get to. And that's that. Something else I'd like to point out is the first time you sign in, this URL would actually not contain this section here, which is your tenant, and that's kind of crucial. So normally it just has Dynamics Business Central, then some question marks, and then you might just have the production environment. But I think even the environment is not mentioned there. So if you bookmark that, it will actually take you and request you to sign in every time, and you kind of have to go the long route. What I would recommend is after the initial setup, just either refresh the whole thing or just go through the admin center if you can, or at least change the company using this feature from here. So this will always refresh and give you the full environment link that you need. And that's actually what you're interested in, to bookmark the link to this one. Or like specific company you're interested in. And then, of course, you will still be asked to sign in, but that's pretty much that. So yeah, that's what it takes to set up your own business environment. You can play with it. Oh yeah, I did mention there is a 30-day trial here, right? So you can continue using this after the 30 days if you want to, but you can only use the companies which are the demo companies, which will be a company created with one of the option evaluation, right? If you create a company using this option, production setup data, then actually, or new no data. If you use any of these options, then there's actually a flag which is hidden and you probably don't know about it, which will not be raised And those companies you can only use for the 30 days. After the 30 days, you would see messages which tell you that you cannot use those companies anymore, and then it will take you to a page where you can request to purchase a license. Um, However, if you use the evaluation company you can use for, I won't say indefinitely, but for extremely long period of time. I actually don't know at which point they would stop using that. So this Chronos NL you can use for as long as you want. Sami Test I can also use for as long as I want, provided I created it using the option evaluation data. Now, if you're not sure whether your company is evaluation or not, then here's a trick you can play. Just open the company information page, which you do by going to settings and opening company information or searching, right? So it doesn't matter. In this page, there is a field which is actually hidden, so it's kind of behind the screen. And in order to see the value of that field, you need to open the page inspection. So you can either use the Control Alt and F1 shortcut, which in my case also does this, but this will open the page inspection section. Or you can click on settings, help, then help and support. And then you have this option here, inspect pages and data. So if you click this one, it will open the page inspection, same as I click Control Alt and F1, so same thing. Now what the page inspection allows you to do is allows you to see all the fields in the table. So even fields which are not visible in the page. So here what you want to do is, I think it's called demonstration company actually. Yeah, it's called a demo company. And you see the flag is yes, so you do want this flag. So for any company that has a flag yes, that means you can keep using this one even beyond the 30 days. There are some limitations here, so you can only post with certain dates. I think January, February, and November and December. At least that's what used to be there. Actually, let me test. Can we create a sales order and change the date? Let's see what happens here. So if we change the order date to, it's actually fine. Okay, so I guess they do allow you to do that. But yeah, there will be some limitations eventually. One of the biggest limitation is that in the demo company, every time you open the company, the work date in the my settings will automatically be set to the last day, as in the latest day for which there is a posted transaction. Which right now by default is, I guess, was that April? Yeah, the 10th of April 2023. So of course I can change it to today and I can post some transactions. But if somebody posts anything in the future, and very often these demo templates also have transactions in the future. So the demo data has been 2023 for the last 2-3 years. So this will be quite inconvenient. That's one of the small ways Microsoft made sure that you can't really use this comfortably. There's other things they do as well. I believe there might be a limitation to the amount of data you can post as well, so I'm not sure for sure. Don't quote me on that. But yeah, essentially, if you want to play, you can play with the demo company, and you can find a checkbox this way. The non-demo companies you can only use for up to 30 days, but then you can actually import your own master data, your own chart of accounts, your own customers, vendors, and post actual transactions from real life and check how the reports then would look like. So that's a really cool thing you can do. One last thing I promised to show when we started the demo, and that's what permissions do you need to have if you're just another user in your organization and you don't necessarily know. So I did mention that the access to the admin center is not available to everyone. So it's limited only to users which in the Microsoft Dynamics 365 admin center. Let's close this one. If you go to the active users, my user is what's called a global admin. So this is the user I'm using to sign in. And what I'm talking about is these roles. So the global administrator can do pretty much anything, right? So, and I cannot edit my own permissions. Now, there are other users who can access the admin center for Business Center, however, so you don't have to be a global administrator to do that. I do believe the help desk administrator can access the admin center as well. And if you go to show all by category, I think there is a dedicated one, which is Dynamics 365 Administrator. And I think they actually added a new one for Business Central. I don't know if it will be visible here. Can we search here? Oh, come on, that's not nice. I think there is one for Business Central. 'Cause they were talking about it recently in an article. Those will be the limited, the new limited type permissions. I don't find it now, so maybe that's something that's to come in the near future. It's possible. Or I'm scrolling too fast to see it. Anyway, but generally speaking, if you're the global admin, then of course, no problem. You will have the admin center. If not, you could be made a help desk administrator, or even simpler, the Dynamics 365 administrator. All of those three. And again, these are in your Dynamics 365 tenant, so the organization-wide roles. All of those three roles would then have access to the admin center from here. So that's something you may want to do. Then, of course, if you added, so if you were the user who created this trial, right, then your user would automatically get assigned a Dynamics 365 license for Business Central. However, other users, so for example, as you can see in this organization, there's plenty of additional users. If I check Ali Bellu, I guess I have no idea how this is pronounced. If we check her licenses, then she clearly doesn't have this assigned. So you may have to go, and if you want to allow other people from your organization to play as well, somebody with permissions to this will have to come over here and assign these licenses and then save the changes. And then you can either directly give access to Business Central so they can sign in, or even better, you can first assign the licenses that come over here to the users page in Business Central and use this feature, update users from Dynamics 365. And this will pull all the users to whom you assigned licenses, and they will be created. Now, a cool thing you can do here is use this configure permissions per license, and you can come over here and say pretty much anyone that has this specific type of license. So you click here, and you want to enable edit mode and customize the permissions. So what you want to do is give them super permissions, if you want to, of course. And you can give them only super for a specific company, or you can let them be a super user at all. So the reason you want to do that is because the default permissions they will get the first time they sign in will just be enough for them to sign in, and they won't necessarily be able to do too much. Actually, business full access, this should be enough for most. Okay, so I guess you don't necessarily need that. So business full access, this should allow them to pretty much play with most functionalities. But if you want to make sure they have 100% access to everything, you can add the super user to this setup in the license configuration. That means that any user who has assigned this type of license, as soon as they are added to Business Central, whether they sign in themselves after you assign the license, or whether you use this function update from 365, which will go find all the users, add them, then they will automatically be assigned this super user. So you can see Ali B was added, and she has this super role that I assigned to her. So both of these will be fine. It doesn't really matter how you do it. But yeah, this is how what you need to do to add the rest of your organization to Business Central. I think that's pretty much it. If you guys have any questions, feel free to contact me, and yeah, enjoy.